Hi, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. If you've ever stared at a half-empty glass on your porch and wondered how your life quietly fell apart, yeah, you're not alone. It was a Tuesday. Nothing big ever happens on Tuesdays, right? But when I pulled into the driveway after work, there it was. A single wine glass sitting on the front step. Not inside, not on the kitchen counter, just waiting there, like it had something to say. It was hers, Dana's favorite one. The one with the tiny etched stars along the rim. She only used it when she was celebrating something. And she never, ever left it outside. I remember standing there, keys still in my hand, staring at that glass like it was some kind of omen. The stem was wet, which meant it was recent. But the house was quiet. No lights on. No sound. No scent of dinner. Just the faintest trace of her perfume fading on the air. I stepped inside. Shoes still by the door. Her bag gone. Bedroom neat. Bathroom clean. One towel missing. The only thing left out, on our dining table, was my phone. But it wasn't mine. It looked like mine. Same case. Same scratches. But when I pressed the power button, it opened to a locked screen with her background photo. A picture of a beach I've never been to. The lock screen said 4:17 p.m. The time she'd texted me. Just breathe. I'll explain everything after. But that message wasn't on my real phone. Only on this decoy. I sat down slowly. I didn't know whether to laugh or throw up. And that's when I noticed the second detail. A printed card under the fake phone. It was thick, matte black, embossed letters. Just 2 lines. Private evening. By invitation only. 6:30 p.m. Ask Andrew. Andrew. Her boss. I'd heard his name enough times to know the tone she used when she said it. Half admiration, half whatever else she tried to hide. This wasn't the first late night she attributed to him. But this was the first time she didn't bother covering her tracks. I texted her real number. Called. No answer. Left a voicemail I immediately regretted because my voice cracked halfway through. I waited. An hour passed. Then 2. That night, I sat on the front step beside the empty wine glass and stared into the dark, thinking maybe she'd come back and explain it all away. Tell me I was overreacting. That it was a client event. A misunderstanding. Anything. She didn't come home. Not that night. Not the next. Not even a message. 3 days. Not a single word. And when she did walk back through that door, something was different in her eyes. Like someone else had moved in behind them. Someone who had plans she never discussed with me. Someone who wasn't sorry at all. But I'll tell you what happened next. And trust me, it gets worse. The morning after she returned was unbearable in its normalcy. I heard the shower running upstairs like it was any other Wednesday. Heard the clinking of her necklace as she dressed. Heard the front door open and shut without a single word exchanged between us. The silence wasn't explosive, it was surgical. Clean. Chilling. She left behind no trail of emotion, no apology, not even the courtesy of eye contact. Just the lingering smell of perfume and the faint ghost of music that must have been playing in her car when she pulled into the driveway. I didn't follow her. I didn't even pretend to be brave. I just sat there at the kitchen table staring at that black invitation card again, rereading it like it might offer some new clue I missed the first 100 times. But all it did was confirm what my gut already knew. Something happened that night. Something that changed her. I used to believe in the power of transparency, in asking questions directly. But now, every time I opened my mouth to ask her where she'd been or why she disappeared, I felt like a little boy begging for attention from a mother too tired to care. I tried to work that day, but lasted maybe 2 hours. I kept imagining her with him. Andrew, laughing at something he said, clinking glasses in some dimly lit corner of that private estate. I wondered if he touched her hand when no one was looking. If she let him. Or worse, if she reached for his. My stomach twisted at the thought, but I couldn't stop picturing it. That's what silence does. It breeds stories far worse than the truth. That night, she came home late again. No warning. No text. Just the jingle of keys and the sound of heels on the hardwood floor. I asked if she ate. She said yes. I asked how work was. She said fine. I asked if we could talk. She said not tonight. Then she disappeared into the guest room like it had always been hers. I know I sound weak. Maybe I am. But I swear, I didn't marry her thinking I'd someday become a stranger in my own home. I didn't sign up for one-sided conversations and cryptic detachment. I didn't pour everything I had into this marriage just to be treated like a placeholder until something better came along. Later that night, when I thought she was asleep, I stood outside the guest room door with my hand resting on the knob for what felt like forever. I didn't open it. I just listened. No breathing. No rustling sheets. No sound at all. It was like listening through a wall to a life I no longer belonged in. I returned to our bedroom, crawled into the cold half of the bed, and finally opened her Instagram page. She had posted a story again. A glass of red wine. Candlelight. A book open to a page that read, "We don't lose people. They leave. And sometimes, that's worse." It wasn't a cry for help. It wasn't regret. It was a statement. A message. One not meant for me, but one I couldn't ignore. My hands were shaking. I wanted to scream, to smash the phone, to walk into that guest room and demand answers. But instead, I cried. Quiet, embarrassing tears into the pillow we used to share. Because I knew, deep down, she was still out there emotionally, still with him in whatever way counted most. And I was the one sitting at home asking questions that would never be answered. That night, I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling and waited for morning, praying that somehow, when the sun came up, she'd walk into the room and say, "Let's talk." But she didn't. She didn't even knock. I woke up to the sound of laughter. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the silence like a razor. For a brief, diluted moment, I thought maybe she had invited someone over, an old friend, a sister, anyone who could anchor us back to something real. But when I stepped out into the hallway, the house was empty. The sound was coming from her phone. It was playing a video, one of those vertical clips you see in a story, looping in soft flashes of filtered light. She'd left it on the hallway console table, the screen still active, volume low, but unmistakable. It was her and Andrew, sitting side by side, toasting with flutes of champagne under string lights. His arm brushed hers as he leaned in to say something, and she laughed, loud, free, unguarded. That wasn't her work laugh. That was her summer at the lake laugh. The one I hadn't heard in months. She hadn't even posted it. It was saved in her story drafts. I only saw it because she forgot to close the app. I stood there, paralyzed. Something inside me knew I should put the phone down and walk away. But I didn't. I watched it 3 times. 4. Then I opened the gallery. What I found wasn't scandalous. Not by any definition that would hold up in court. But it was intimate. Subtle. The kind of closeness that doesn't need words or skin. A photo of her curled up on an unfamiliar couch with a glass of wine, her legs tucked under her, wearing a hoodie that didn't belong to me. A screenshot of a playlist titled The Escape. A photo of a handwritten note that simply said, "You're magnetic." That was the moment I realized the betrayal had already happened. Not in the flesh, maybe. Not yet. But emotionally. She had already crossed a line I didn't even know we'd drawn. And I'd been too stupid, too trusting, or maybe just too desperate to notice. When she got back that evening, I told myself I'd confront her. That I'd lay it all out, show her the phone, the pictures, the note. But when she walked through the door, she looked so calm. Not joyful, not guilty, just numb. She didn't ask how my day was. Didn't comment on the lasagna I left untouched on the table. She walked straight past me, into the guest room, and shut the door without a word. And still, I hesitated. What if I was wrong? What if I misread it all? What if that note wasn't from him? What if that hoodie belonged to someone else? What if she really was just exhausted and overwhelmed, and the distance between us was something we both created without realizing? I stood outside the door again that night, like a shadow of a husband, debating whether to knock. But instead of knocking, I did something worse. I left a message on Andrew's work voicemail. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just said, "Hi, this is Miles, Dana's husband. I'd really appreciate it if you didn't contact her after work hours. Our marriage has been going through something, and I'd like a little space to try to rebuild it. I hope you can respect that." Then I hung up. Immediately, I regretted it. I sounded pathetic. Small. Like the kind of man who tries to protect his relationship with voicemails instead of courage. But I didn't delete it. I let it stand, like a white flag fluttering in a war I never even understood. The next morning, Dana didn't say a word about it. But I noticed her expression when she checked her phone. Something unreadable flickered in her eyes. Part surprise, part contempt. She didn't mention the call. She didn't have to. Instead, she said she was going to stay late at the office for the next few days. "Big proposal," she mumbled. "Lots of pressure." And just like that, she was gone again. This time, she didn't even pretend to take the wine glass with her. The silence wasn't just between us anymore. It was inside me now. Heavy, loud, and I swear, I could hear it wherever I went. At the grocery store, in the elevator, in the middle of the night while brushing my teeth. This thick, invisible hum of something unsaid, unfinished, but dangerously close to exploding. The next few days were a blur. Dana claimed she had strategy meetings and overnight prep sessions for a major client, which somehow required a duffel bag and her favorite perfume. Each morning she left earlier, each night she came back later. And me? I just waited. Like some broken fixture in our home. I microwaved dinners that went cold before she returned. I opened and closed text windows without sending anything. And I slept less than ever. At one point, I found myself sitting on the floor of our walk-in closet, just staring at the hem of her red dress. The one she wore on our anniversary last year. The one she used to twirl in, barefoot, wine in hand, like she was dancing with the night itself. Now it hung limp, untouched, forgotten. But things shifted on Saturday. She was home, for once. At least physically. She came downstairs in an oversized sweatshirt, hair damp, no makeup, like the woman I used to know. For a second, I thought maybe she was ready to talk. Maybe the distance had been a test, and now we'd both survived it. I offered her tea. She took it. We sat in silence on opposite ends of the couch, the steam curling between us like a wall. Then her phone rang. She didn't even flinch. Just let it vibrate 3 times before flipping it over, face down. I caught the name on the screen. It wasn't Andrew. It was just a single letter, S. No emoji. No last name. Just S. And even worse, her fingers trembled when she saw it. Not from fear. From recognition. Like the kind of tremble you get when your heart skips, because someone special is reaching out. She didn't answer. She just sighed and stood up. I need to go for a walk. It was raining. She didn't take an umbrella. She left the tea unfinished. After she closed the door, I reached for her phone without thinking. I knew her passcode. I'd known it for years. But it didn't work. She had changed it. My hands were still hovering over the glass when I saw the screen light up again, this time a preview. S, same place. Sunset. My throat tightened. I didn't know who S was. It wasn't a coworker I'd heard of. Not a friend from her social circle. And it wasn't Andrew. Unless S stood for something else entirely. Someone else. I didn't follow her. I didn't try to call. I just sat back, phone still in my hand, staring at my own reflection in the dark TV screen across from me. I looked older. Paler. Pathetic. Like someone who was slowly realizing he didn't live in a marriage. He lived in a shared illusion. When she returned 2 hours later, she looked different. Not happier. Not guilty. Just settled. As if some storm inside her had passed, and she no longer felt the need to pretend. She didn't notice the teacup still sitting cold on the table. Didn't ask what I did while she was gone. She walked past me like a memory. Like something she'd already left behind emotionally, and now had to physically move around. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I sat on the edge of the bed, fingers knotted, heart hammering. I said, Dana, is there someone else? She paused in the doorway. Her back was to me. For a moment, I thought she might lie. Might offer some half-hearted reassurance. But she didn't. All she said was, why are you asking me that now? No denial. No shock. Just cold curiosity. As if I was late to a conversation she had already had in her head weeks ago. I need to know, I said. My voice cracked like a branch under pressure. I deserve to know what's happening. What's been happening? She turned her head just slightly. Not enough to meet my eyes. Just enough to speak. You already do. You just don't want to admit it. And with that, she closed the guest room door behind her. And left me there, alone, with the echo of something that sounded an awful lot like confirmation. The next morning, I made a choice I'm not proud of. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was madness. Maybe it was just the slow death of hope whispering that it was okay to finally cross the line. Either way, while Dana was in the shower, I entered the guest room for the first time in over a week. Her scent hit me immediately, clean linen and something floral, unfamiliar. Her suitcase was still open on the chair, half-packed as if she were constantly in a state of leaving. Her laptop was gone, probably with her. But something else drew my eyes to the bed. The pillow. The one on the right, the side she always slept on. It looked off. Too high. Like something had been tucked beneath it. I hesitated. Then I lifted it. And there it was. A folded note. Handwritten. On thick cream stationery. I didn't even have to read it to feel sick. The way the handwriting curved. The ink smudged near the bottom. I could already tell it wasn't from me. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone. You're magnetic because you are honest, raw, and alive. If he can't see it, then let him fade. Some things are meant to break before they rebuild. I stood there, heart pounding, reading the note over and over again, trying to convince myself it didn't mean what it clearly did. This wasn't just about affection. This wasn't a work crush. This was a foundation. Something emotional, deep, intimate. Someone had seen inside her, my wife, and told her it was okay to leave me behind. Encouraged her to do it. And worse, she'd kept the note right next to her head while she slept. Like it brought her peace. I wanted to scream, to tear the letter in half, to rip the whole room apart. But instead, I just stood there like a fool, clutching the one piece of undeniable truth I never wanted to find. When she came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, she froze. Her eyes went straight to the pillow in my hand. "You went through my things?" she asked. I didn't answer. I just held the note up. Her expression didn't change. No panic. No apology. Just exhaustion. "I told you not to make this harder than it already is." That's all she said. She didn't explain who S was. She didn't justify the note. She didn't ask for it back. She just got dressed in silence and left the house within 10 minutes. I sat on the edge of her bed for hours, holding the letter like it was radioactive. The words looped through my head again and again. Let him fade. Was that what I had become to her? Just a shadow she was slowly phasing out? A chapter she was skimming past? That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I logged into our shared cloud storage, something we used to back up photos. She'd forgotten I still had access. Most of it was normal. Work files, selfies, screenshots of recipes she never made. But tucked deep inside a folder labeled temp, I found a video. It started blurry. She was laughing. Whoever held the camera whispered something, and Dana bit her lip and turned toward him. Then the frame came into focus. It wasn't Andrew. It was someone younger, maybe late 20s. Shaggy hair, t-shirt, sitting on a patio I'd never seen before. And the worst part? She looked at him the way she used to look at me, the way she never looked at Andrew. And then, right before the clip cut out, he said one word. Seth. That was it. Seth. S. Now I had a name, but still no answers. I barely slept that night. My thoughts were tangled so tightly I could feel them buzzing behind my eyes. Every time I closed them, I saw her. Not Dana as I knew her, but the Dana in that video, eyes half-lidded, grinning at someone who wasn't me, laughing like she didn't have a husband at home watching her disappear one frame at a time. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was replacement. I wasn't mourning a crack in our marriage. I was watching someone else step into the life I built and wear it like a better fit. The name stuck with me. Seth. It sounded so ordinary, so non-threatening. But there was something surgical about the way it cut through me. Who was he? How had he gotten close enough to her to make her forget everything we had? I didn't even know where to start looking, until I remembered the old laptop we used to share. She hadn't touched it in over a year, but it was still in the hall closet under a pile of board games and winter scarves. I charged it in the kitchen and waited for it to boot like I was defusing a bomb. There were remnants of her email accounts still saved in the browser. One of them, not her work address, had an inbox full of newsletters and junk, but buried in the noise were calendar invites. Repeating events. Virtual meetings. A weekly book club, private link, from 6 months ago. Always on Thursdays. Always one-on-one. The sender? Seth. Preston at Modtag Studio. Com. I copied the address and searched it. Modtag Studio was a graphic design firm downtown. Small. Trendy. Their website had a Meet the Team page with a blurred header photo and animated bios that popped up when you hovered over each face. And there he was. Seth Preston, art director. Specializes in brand storytelling, user identity, and visual narrative. There was a photo. He looked almost exactly how I remembered from the video. His smile was casual, lazy even. A guy who probably had Spotify playlists for every kind of wine. He didn't look like a predator. He looked like a distraction. I stared at the screen for a long time before I clicked away. I could feel my fingers curling into fists without meaning to. My stomach turned. And somewhere in the back of my brain, the worst thought began to take root. Not how Dana met him, but why she chose not to stop it. That afternoon, she came home earlier than usual. I didn't ask why. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing I still cared. But something about her demeanor was different, less guarded, more at ease. Like whatever guilt she'd been carrying had either vanished or been fully accepted. She made tea without asking if I wanted any. Sat across from me. Looked around the living room like she didn't recognize it anymore. Then she said something that knocked the air out of me. I think we need a reset. Space. Time to rethink what we're doing here. She didn't say divorce. Not yet. But the word was floating in the room like a loaded gun, just waiting for one of us to pick it up. I saw the video, I said quietly. She looked up, not shocked, just disappointed. You went through my files? You left them where I could find them. No, Miles, she said, her voice suddenly sharp. You looked for them. You went digging. That's different. I wanted to scream. To shout that none of this was fair. That I was the one abandoned. That she was the one who let someone else crawl inside her soul while I waited at home with meals going cold. But all I could say was, how long? She didn't hesitate. 3 months. And the note. Seth wrote it. I didn't ask him to. He just understands how I feel. He listens. That cut deeper than anything else. Not the cheating. Not the lying. But the idea that she had finally found someone who did the one thing I thought I was good at. Listening. She stood up and grabbed her bag. I'm going to stay at my sister's for a few days, she said. I think it's best. I didn't stop her. I didn't chase her. I didn't say goodbye. I just sat in the echo she left behind, surrounded by the life we'd built, slowly collapsing under the weight of someone else's voice. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember waking up to a quiet, so deep it felt like the air itself had weight. Dana was gone. Her closet was still half full, her mug was still in the sink, and her perfume lingered like a memory on the stairwell. But she wasn't here. It was real now. She had taken her bag and vanished into a version of her life that didn't include me. No slamming doors. No suitcase wheels clacking on the floor. Just the sound of her decision closing in like thunder in the distance. She said she was staying at her sister's. At first, I didn't question it. I mean, where else would she go? But something about the way she said it, too quick, too rehearsed. As if she had it ready before I even asked. And that night, in a moment of pathetic desperation, I called her sister Charlotte. She and I had never been close. Dana said we were different planets. Still, I dialed her number and forced my voice to sound casual when she picked up. Hey, Charlotte. Just checking in. Dana's okay, right? Silence. Then a pause. Not too long, but enough to sting. I thought she was with you. My blood went cold. I tried to keep my voice steady. She said she was staying at your place for a few days. Another pause. This time longer. No, I haven't seen her since Christmas. Is everything okay, Miles? I lied. I told her yes. That I must have misunderstood. That it was probably all fine. Then I hung up. For a while I just stood in the hallway, staring at the front door like it might swing open on its own. Like she'd walk in, drop her bag, and laugh it all off. But the house stayed still. And the lie just sat there, between the silence and my chest, rotting. I didn't know what to do. I paced. I thought about driving around town, checking hotels. I even went online and looked up the guest list for a design convention Seth's company had been promoting on social media. And that's when I saw it, a tagged photo from a downtown cocktail lounge, posted just the night before. A group shot, 8 or 9 people, smiling, holding glasses. And there she was, Dana, off to the side, hand resting lightly on Seth's shoulder, her head tilted toward him in a way that didn't leave much to interpret. She wasn't trying to hide. She wasn't shielding herself from the camera. She was relaxed, present, as if she belonged there. And me? I was the ghost outside the frame. I stared at the screen until the battery on my phone died. I didn't charge it. I didn't move. I just sat in the dark thinking about how casually she'd discarded the truth. Not even a clever lie. Just a lazy one. A sister's couch? That was the best she could come up with? Later that night, I did something else I'm ashamed of. I went to Seth's work. Not inside. I just parked across the street in my car and watched. The lights were on. I saw silhouettes moving inside. Laughter floated out when someone opened the side door to smoke. A car pulled up. A woman got out, short black dress, boots, clutch in hand. It was her, Dana. She didn't hesitate. She didn't glance around. She walked right in, like she was expected. It wasn't just about emotional betrayal anymore. It was something organized, intentional, rehearsed. She wasn't being lured or manipulated. She had chosen this. Whatever this was, it wasn't temporary. It wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. I stayed in the car for almost an hour. I don't know why. Maybe I thought she'd come out and see me. Maybe I thought Seth would walk her to the car, and I'd confront him like some kind of broken-down husband from a forgotten drama. But no one came out. And eventually, I left. I drove home to an empty house and sat in the foyer for a long time, staring at the space where her shoes used to be. The shoes she always left crooked, no matter how many times I straightened them. I used to be annoyed by it. Now I just missed them. Missed her. Or at least the version of her I thought I knew. But she wasn't missing. She was simply gone. Gone somewhere she wanted to be. It's strange how fast life stops waiting for you. One day, you're frozen in the foyer, staring at the place where her boots used to be. The next, you wake up and realize she hasn't texted in over a week, and you're okay. Not healed, not whole, but okay. The quiet doesn't scream as loud anymore. Her name doesn't echo through the walls the way it used to. It's just quiet. After that night, I watched her walk into Seth's world without hesitation. Something shifted. Not immediately, but slowly, like snow melting from a roof, one silent drop at a time. I didn't try to contact her again. I didn't stalk her social media. I didn't go back to the office across the street. I let the silence stay. And in that silence, I started hearing other things. The sound of a neighbor's wind chime I hadn't noticed in years. The rustle of old paperback pages I'd meant to reread. The clinking of cups in the cafe downtown, where I started spending my mornings instead of pacing around an empty house. The world didn't end. It just kept moving. And, to my surprise, I started moving with it. 3 weeks after she left, I boxed up her things. Not in anger, not with bitterness, but with peace. I folded each sweater like it still meant something, not because I hoped she'd return, but because I no longer needed the weight of her absence to remind me who I was. The final item I packed was the chipped blue coffee mug, the one I left by her bed that morning everything began to slip. I held it for a long time. Then I smiled and placed it gently into the box. I taped it shut and wrote one word on the lid. Closure. I don't know where she is now. I don't ask. I don't need to. Because this story, the one I thought was about betrayal, was never really about her. It was about me. Learning how to stand up after crawling. How to speak when I thought my voice didn't matter. How to sit with heartbreak long enough to understand that survival isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes, it's just waking up and making coffee for one, and being okay with that. So, to those of you watching this on Reddit Confessions, I have to ask you something. Was there ever a moment in your life when someone left, but it led to something better, even if you didn't know it at the time? Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading them all. Thanks for being here. And if no one's told you this today, you're stronger than you think.